Hello YouTube, I hope you're all doing well. This will be our next installment in the restoration of Nikki's knife, and I decided to add another one. I need to get this out the door, so I wanted to show the finished product, and I'm going to actually do another one. I've got some other knives like this, and we can go through the individual steps in depth because that'll probably take several videos. If the videos get too long, it's just so hard to edit and make them meaningful and get them downloaded, and so I try to keep them somewhat short. But this is it finished, and for those of you that may be tuning in late or wondering, that Nikki decided that she wanted to carry this, she wanted to use it and restore it and then pass it on down to her children when she's no longer going to use it. And so we did a pretty much full restoration on it. Now there's still parts of her grandfather in here, and I'll point some of those out for her and for you too. It was pretty rough shape. You can look at the I've seen them much worse, but it had several areas of neglect just from sitting, and I think probably towards the end of its career with her grandfather, he used it more as maybe a scraper or a tool than he did an actual knife. But it's got dings in the handle up here. You can see that, I'm not going to sand that out. You would A, remove so much material that you would change the look of the knife, and B, that was probably a day he grumbled some, so she can remember that. A couple pits right up here you can see, and down in here, for whatever reason, in this bottom rivet hole, the top one is a nickel silver rivet, as would have been, but this bottom one, I don't know if it came out, fell out, he took it out for some reason or what, but he couldn't find it. It wasn't long enough, he couldn't put it back in, so he put a nail in there. And he had just clipped it off, and that was good enough, but it was digging into my hand, so I went ahead and smoothed it out. But I did leave it in there. That was something he did, and she can look at that and remember him. The guard was bent, if you remember. I wasn't going to straighten it, but when I looked at it a little more, I realized that it was two compound bends, and rather than being one large bend like this, and I can't do it with my hand, but there was two small bends. So I felt comfortable bringing it back, and anytime you're restoring something like that, you have to make a judgment call on that. The thing about aluminum is, it's a very easy material to move, to put back into shape. But what I found is it doesn't give you any warning. When it's going to break, it just, it metal fatigues, and once it reaches its point, it's not like steel or something that, you kind of know, yeah, I better quit. You just bend it once, it's fine. You bend it one more time, and it's gone. But in this case, it was fine, so I went ahead and moved it back. The stampings stayed nice and crisp. The grind lines were never crisp, even new on this knife. They were rounded just a tiny bit. They're pretty much exactly as they were. Pretty much as if you'd have bought this in the factory in that day, that's pretty much what you would have looked at. And so I hope that she'll enjoy it, she'll use it, and have a good time with it, and remember her grandpa. The handle, again, with leather, I leave it like it is. If it's went 40-50 years, it's in good shape. I wouldn't mess with it. If it's not in such good shape, then it depends on what kind of deterioration you have, whether you can bring it back or not. And we will cover that in some of the actual restoration videos where I show the various processes. Also, just as a recap, remember, if we were going to just preserve this knife, we wouldn't have done any of this on the handle. We wouldn't have done any of this. It's a different process. You'll kind of get a better idea of that if you see this video first. Go back to the second video in this series. And I had started cleaning up one side and then left the other side, but I did clean it up and show you how far I would have taken that. And of course, if you're going to do it for a museum quality preservation, then it's a little bit more involved process. You have there's a couple different ways that you can do a chemical or electrolysis type process to stop the rusting, and you would do other preservation things so that it can be put on display and not deteriorate. Also, something I really haven't ever delved into, but I think from everything I see, and this is just a guess, if any of you work for a museum or know more about it than I do, I think that they coat these things over with, you know, some type of preservative, lacquer, shellac, because just about everything I've seen, especially the really old things, appear to have some sort of coat of sealant on them to keep the oxygen off of them. Obviously, she'll use this again to remind you, as I did in video 2 about oil. I like to put some on and then take a clean, dry, soft cloth or paper towel and wipe it off one time, so that you just have a nice, very thin film of oil. If you leave it too thick, too heavy, dust will collect in it, moisture will collect in the dust, and then the moisture will cause rust. You can also, if you're going to store it for a while, you could put wax on it. Renaissance, which is what they use at the British Museum and other museums. You can use a good hard car wax. What I like better than that is a hard floor wax. They're really tough. They use a lot of carnauba in them, which is a very tough wax, and preserve it that way. You would store it like this. You don't store it in the sheath. Even the vegetable tan sheaths, you can create a microclimate in there, and if you have a lot of humidity, and the next thing you know, you'll pull that out and you'll have rust on it. And in fact, I am guilty of that myself, and I have one of my knives I pulled out the other day, and I noticed right on the edge where there was a beginnings, and I had to clean it up and then store it properly. So store it out of the sheath, nice dry location, and not don't put it in something confining like this. A word on sheaths. If you're going to make your own, there are two types of leather. There's chrome tanned leather, and there's vegetable tan leather. You only want vegetable tan leather. Chrome tan leather will react with the steel and will discolor, rust, and generally do all kinds of crappy things to your knife. So if you go to Tandy Leather here in the United States or wherever your leather supplier is, make sure they know you're going to make the knife sheath out of it, and they should know to direct you to vegetable tan leather. If not, make sure you ask for vegetable tan leather. And it's nice and sharp. It'll shave hair and cut paper and do all the other things. So like any knife, you want to be careful with it, and I know she will be. She's kind of new at collecting, but not that new. She's got several very fine knives, and so I know that since she's still got all her digits, she pretty much knows what to do. And that's pretty much it for this. It's just a quick recap, guys. And like I said, but this is not the end of this. We'll be delving into the various steps of how you do this if these lines, for instance, on the blade, if the grind lines, like through here you have a flat and then you have a bevel here and a bevel here, had these been really crisp, I'll show you how to maintain that crispness and not lose it or round it off or mess it up. In this case, this is the way they made the knife, so you know, that's the way I restored it. I wanted it to look like it did. The other thing, and I touched on this, but I want to touch on it again. Before you do anything to these knives, if you want to kind of redo it as we did in this case, but make it look as much as you can like it came off the showroom floor, to borrow a term from the automotive industry, look at the finish really good. Try to find areas of the finish that are undisturbed, and I like to take photographs of them. Really high resolution close-up photographs will give you a real good idea of what the finish should actually look like, and that way you can go back pretty much to what they had, rather than you know, it may be a brush finish, it may be polished but only to 2500 grit, it may be what they call a crocus finish, which is really hard to duplicate. It's an older type finish, and it's it's akin to a brushed or sanded finish, but it's done in a different manner. And I've come close, but I've never really duplicated it, because you have to have what they use to do it. If you're doing something big like a sword or something, that's you know, videos and videos. That's a whole nother animal completely. And if you've never done it, take a piece of junk to start with. Don't take a good sword and start going at it with sandpaper, because you will ruin it, and it will cost you a lot of money at a sword polisher to get it repaired, if it's repairable. One thing about old swords is they can only be redone, repolished so many times. They're soft on the interior, they're only hard on the exterior. And I'm speaking of samurai swords here, not necessarily European ones. But those can only be done so many times, and then you wear through to the soft metal and they don't polish good, and of course they've lost that keen hard edge. So have it evaluated. If it's a sword that you think there's any value to, take it to someone, have it evaluated first. And you know, even though it's pretty expensive and time consuming, there are swords that are certainly worth having that done by a pro that knows what he is doing and has the proper stones to do it. So I hope she'll enjoy it. I hope you guys enjoyed this series. Next, I've got some old stuff to catch up on, we'll be getting into, and once we're done with that, we're going to revisit this, and we're going to show some of the processes. She didn't get a sheath. Her relatives couldn't find the sheath that went with the knife. I went through my stash and found this one, and it's just like it was absolutely made for the thing. It just fits it just perfectly, so that'll be going back with it, and I'll send this out in the mail today to her. So you guys take it easy, YouTube. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I enjoy your comments, and it's just a lot of fun for me. So you guys take it easy, and we'll talk to you later.